All right, it is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. This is the Dartmouth Board of Health meeting. I'm going to open the meeting with a roll call. So Emily Michelle Olmsted, Chair, is present.
Susan Murray, present.
Excellent. And Susan Murray, I don't know if you heard what Chris just said, but it sounds like our third member, Richard Romero, is not certain he's going to be able to make it. And so since we do have quorum, we'll just begin the meeting. And then if he joins us, great. As a reminder to everyone, this meeting is being recorded. So it is 4:31. So moving on to the agenda, section 1 appointments at 4:31 p.m. is recognition and retirement of Dartmouth Animal Control, Sandra Goslin. Chris, would you like to speak on this or should I call on someone else?
No, please, I'd like to speak first.
Please.
So, unfortunately, the board did not get to meet until after Sandy's retirement. And I wanted to take this moment to just, call attention to Sandy's 3+ decades of service, having built the department. I know Sandy will have some mixed feelings about what I'm about to say, but, really, prior to Sandy, we had animal control, which was just a dog catcher. And I know that, Sandy doesn't like that, but, she built Dartmouth Animal Control to be, I know, the example of what animal control needs to be in a municipality. It is a cross-jurisdictional position within municipal government because the animal control not only deals with the animal control responsibilities and mass general laws assigned by the select board to the animal control officer, but also the animal health inspector positions that are assigned by the Board of Health. And what those animal health inspector positions are what I believe are one of the most important with respects to public safety and health, because they're managing those zoonotic diseases that can transfer to people like rabies, sometimes on a day-to-day basis. Massachusetts has a very stringent rabies program. We ended Sandy's career with an issue that was on the last agenda that we talked about, where we were on the edge of our chairs managing a issue not far from town hall with a cat, and it evolved and evolved. And as we had conversations with the state about it, they later realized, like, wow, you guys are ahead of the curve and we're telling you things to do that you've already done. And that was only possible with Sandy's expertise. It's going to come at a great loss. Animal control will go on, but, Sandy is really responsible for bringing us to where we've been, where other communities have looked to try to duplicate what Sandy built. So I just wanted to take that moment to thank Sandy for all these years, her hard work, her dedication, the persistence of the job into her personal life throughout those decades of service. It wasn't a 9-to-5 job where she went home and, hung up the keys and forgot about it. It's something that, she took home with her, into her personal life. You just can't escape it, especially when you live in the town. So, big thank you to Sandy, and just wanted the board to be aware of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And, from the years I've been on the board, she's always been such an amazing resource. And it does sound like quite a loss, but, what an amazing legacy for her to have been able to provide to the town and that expertise. So, so thank you to Sandy. Susan Murray, would you like to say anything?
I've worked with Sandy on the agricultural commission, and at my farm, and she's an amazing human being that does more than one person can actually do. And it's been every time I've worked with her, it's been an absolute joy. And the town will definitely, she's not going anywhere, but the town will definitely miss her.
For sure. Great. Chris, we don't need any official motion on this, correct?
That is correct. And if we want to, if the board wants to let, Sandy, have a few words, that's fine.
Oh, by all means. I'm sorry. Sandy, would you like to speak? And remember to unmute if so. All right, I don't see that Sandy is unmuting. So again, oh, here
Here
she
I
goes.
am.
Yeah,
Okay.
excellent. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'm here with about 8 kids doing slip and slide and pony clubs. So, uh, I thank Chris for those words. It has been a long haul, but I did love my job. And, I hope that the town just supports whoever comes into the positions. It's a tough job. It's not easy. It hasn't been easy, but, I'll be happy to help them out in any way I can, in the future, so that they can succeed, because we do have one heck of an animal control department in the town of Dartmouth. I would want to say probably one of the best in the state. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Great. All right.
Yeah, that's all. And, I can't overdo it enough for Sandy. I'm not one of the best, the best. So thank you. And that's all.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, what an amazing department that's been put up. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to section 2, new business. Item A is the minutes of May 7th, 2025. One thing I noted, and just for like a technicality, starting at item B on page, really on page 6, I'm in the bold writing. I'm called the vice chair, I think 3 times. So for item B, C, and D, I'm called the vice chair. Again, I'm not offended, but technically that's incorrect. That was the only thing I noticed. So that would be the correction I would ask for. Susan Murray, did you have any corrections to or comments on the minutes?
I do not.
Okay. Chris, was what I said clear? Do you want me to restate it?
Nope, we do not received.
Okay, great. So then I move to approve the minutes of May 7th, 2025 with the correction of the title for Emily Michelle Olmsted. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, we'll vote together. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to new business item B, 271 Flag Swamp Road, rescinding of grant of restrictive covenant. So I'm going to see, is there someone who is either the owner of the property or an applicant who is here for this property?
My name is Rafael Zelek from Zelek Design. I'm the applicant.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the time. One correction, it's 291 Flag Swamp Road, not 271.
So, okay, my apologies. The agenda says 271, but let's move forward as 291. Go ahead, sir. Thank
Correct.
you.
Yeah. So, so obviously, this accessory dwelling unit that has been permitted for to do as an office use with a space, library, office area, and there's also obviously there's an open piece. The owner always wanted to have a connection to the existing septic system. So we've went through the process with the Board of Health to review the built structure. So that building has already been built. And we're trying to right now to get an approval to be able to connect to the existing septic as well as, and I think, well, we went through the process of getting connected to the existing septic as we've done the verification process of reviewing the existing septic information, which is a 5-bedroom, 5-bedroom system. There is 4 bedrooms in the existing residential dwelling. And then there's one room that is considered and flagged as a bedroom, so make it to a total of 5. And then obviously in order to make this functional space, we want to have a bathroom and a sink in a kitchenette area. So we want to connect water from the existing residential unit and then run the water up to the new structure that was built. So we're asking to rescind the covenant for the restrictive covenant for connecting to water, so we can have water and connect to the existing septic. I think that's in a nutshell.
Chris, would you like to speak on this one?
Sure, I can provide, a summary to, probably answer any questions the board members may have. So a number of years ago, a detached building was proposed through the various application processes with the town, a building permit, which, sought sign off here at the Board of Health and other departments. When that building was proposed, it was proposed without any wastewater or water supply connections. It did have a configuration that resembled what the agent or the owner just reported, with the exception of no fixtures, and fixtures by being kitchen fixtures, plumbing fixtures. So the placement of it was such that it would facilitate easy connection to the septic. So, as part of our review and looking at it, there was some aspects of it that, without looking at it comprehensively, a restrictive covenant was recorded that that building would not have any waste piping associated with it, because the builders at the time were reporting that, no, this is just a home office. It'll never be anything other than that. There won't be any water from it. So, a while later, the proposal for plumbing fixtures circulated to us, and they've demonstrated that they would be able to make the connection. They'll make the connection into the septic system in accordance with 310 CMR 1500 in full compliance with the code. So we would just need the board's vote to rescind that restrictive covenant so that it could then get recorded at the registry of deeds. So there's nothing preventing that rescission by a positive vote of the board.
And Chris, because I'm trying to make sure I understand why this was put in place originally, because the system was originally sized for 4 bedrooms, or why was this put into place originally?
Because there was, to summarize it is, we can see exactly what was being done, but it was being done in an incomplete manner. And that, it was just like, listen, we kept telling the builders, you have the ability to do it, just design the connection and whatnot. Don't piecemeal it. Nope. The builder kept telling us repeatedly, that's not what we want to do. That's not what we want to do. But we also have to, I've left out an important piece of information, is that the town also had restrictions in place at the time about the maximum size of a, what we used to call an accessory apartment. Now we have the change in requirements on what accessory apartments were, and now called accessory dwelling units. So there's a lot more by right opportunity than what the zoning had previously provided.
Got
So
it.
it
Okay.
was, it was, it's, it could have been done, but maybe it would have triggered some issues. It would have triggered some issues requiring a Board of Appeals application due to the size of the structure under the former terms of by right. But now with the governor's, the passage of the governor's law, bill that became law, accessory dwelling units now removes that, restriction. And, they're looking to put the plumbing in now.
Got it. So this really is allowed by the current regulations.
Yeah.
Got it. And then the only other question I have at the moment is this is a Title V reminder. Don't we get to a certain point, maybe it's multifamily, do you need a 2-compartment septic tank? But I could be mixing up.
Yeah, so, yep, they have worked through us with making the connection.
Okay,
Application, yeah. And they've had the Title V inspection done on the system
okay,
to assure that it's, it's functioning. It went in as a 5-bedroom under the current edition of the code. So the soil absorption system is in full compliance, built with the extra capacity by the former owner.
got it, okay. Right, that's what I can think of now. Susan Murray, do you have questions, comments, thoughts?
Nope, I'm all set.
Great. Let me see. I don't see any other hands raised for anyone else here who wishes to speak on this item. Raise your hand now if so. Okay. So then I'm going to take a stab at a motion. So finding that this was put into place originally before the building was being built, and that there was assurance that it was not connecting, but the situation's changed. Finding that the town previously had restrictions in place on accessory apartments, but now there's more by right opportunity based on state regulations, and finding that the soil absorption system is in full compliance. I move to rescind the grant of restrictive covenants for 291 Flag Swamp Road. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, and now we're going to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes.
Thank you
Chris,
very
do you need
much.
us to sign something? Thank you.
So yes.
We signed something? Okay.
We will need the board members to come in and sign the document, because an original document needs to get recorded at the registry of deeds, and that will get recorded by the applicant. So
Will you send us a message when it's ready, or is there a timeline when we should just try and come in?
yes, we will advise you when it's ready.
Thank you.
So then, question, do I need to come to the Board of Health down to the office and pick up the recorded?
We'll
Or-
advise you once it's ready.
Sounds
So,
good. Thank you
yeah.
very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item C, Massachusetts Department of Public Health submetering of water and sewer certification form for Jeffrey W. Bates, Paid Aram House LLC at 35 Brewster Street. Is there an applicant or someone who is on behalf of the applicant who's here? I don't see anyone. You can either raise your hand or unmute. I'm not seeing anyone. Chris, can you speak on this?
Sure.
please?
Thank you. So a number of years ago, the Massachusetts legislature provided for the Department of Public Health to institute changes to the minimum standards for fitness for human habitation. Those are the regulations that apply to housing standards that are enforced by boards of health throughout Massachusetts. Within the set of regulations, previously, there were no provisions for which to allow a landlord to bill tenants for the usage of water and sewer. But because there was an initiative to try to promote water conservation, and thus on the back end, a reduction in wastewater flow, the Massachusetts legislature listened to the bill proponents and did pass this law, which then compelled the change of the 105 CMR 410 regulations. So within the regulations, it provides for an option for a landlord to bill tenants for water and sewer. However, there are certain requirements that must be made to the dwelling unit. And those are that the dwelling unit must have low flow fixtures installed and signed off by a licensed plumber in Massachusetts. Once the form has been signed by a licensed plumber, it is then approved by the local Board of Health. So we have only had 2 locations that I can recall where this has been done, and this will be the 3rd. The only thing is, it is a by right approval, but what I would ask the board to consider is to have the approval conditioned upon contact by the licensed plumber, that the signature on that page is in fact the signature of that plumber. I did advise the owner of the property of that. With government's role with protection of public health, it's trust but verify. And there is a component of needing to verify because it's not that we distrust, but we just need to make sure. When I told him, I said, are there plumbing permits to back this up? And he said, a lot of this was all done years ago. So I couldn't verify it through plumbing permits from what he had told me. So I would think it would be reasonable to expect that that licensed plumber should reach out to us to verify that that is his signature on that form. And that's all.
Chris, if it was done years ago, a plumber would be able to come in and say, just kind of check off that, yes, they are low flow fixtures. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. Okay. Okay. In the wording of the condition that you're suggesting, if we so move as a board, would be that it's conditioned upon contact by the licensed plumber to confirm their signature on the documentation that you have. Is that good wording?
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay. Susan Murray, do you have questions or comments?
I do not.
Great. Is there anyone else here to speak on this item? Okay. I don't see any activity. So I'm going to say finding that this is a by right approval and that the regulations have changed that allow the landlord to bill the tenants for water. I'm going to move to approve Massachusetts Department of Public Health submetering of water and sewer certification form for Jeffrey W. Bates of Paden House LLC at 35 Brewster Street, with the condition that the licensed plumber must contact the Board of Health or Board of Health agents to confirm the signature on the documentation. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, we're going to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to section 3, old business. This is the approval of domestic animal temporary permits issued previously by the board to be approved for an annual permit are as follows. I'm going to read them all out, so bear with me. Luisa Souza at 11 Alden Avenue, 60 pigeons, 15 chickens, hens, game birds, 3 roosters, 4 goats, 3 geese, 3 rabbits. B, Ruby Nato at 5 Cornell Circle, 14 chickens, hens, game birds, and 1 rooster. C, Kevin Gallego at 492 Reed Road, 2 donkeys, 12 chickens, hens, game birds, and 1 rooster. D, Heather Roy at 330 Chase Road, 2 large hooved animals, 5 small hooved animals, 6 chickens, hens, game birds, and 2 rabbits. E, Anthony Bernardini at 197 Horseneck Road, 2 small hooved, no kids, and 4 chickens, hens, game birds. And F, Jonata Ferreira at 105 Old Westport Road, 2 small hooved with 2 kids per year, 12 chickens, hens, game birds, and 1 rooster. Normally I try to go to the applicant, but these are all grouped together as one. Chris, could you actually speak on this first, just so that way it's a little bit clear what we are trying to do?
Sure, thank you. So in the past, we've taken these items up individually, and they were initial applications that were before the board just a few months prior. Each of those applications was conditioned for a short amount of time to allow us to assess the suitability of the property and the keeping of those animals at that property with the board's interest with our domestic animal regulations. In the past, we would take them up individually for the final permit, and we decided recently to try to batch them into a single agenda item for one comprehensive approval if there were no complaints during their probationary period. So, this is the first time we've done this. Otherwise, we would have 6 agenda items that would all be recommended as approval. If in the future, we received complaints during the probationary period, we would move that into its own agenda item for further discussions about whether to extend the probation period, to not instate full, or take any other action that's within the board's authority. So at this time, all of the 6 sub-items under this agenda item, we are recommending that the board approves.
There's no difference.
Chris, is there certain wording we should keep in mind, or is it just we approve the animal permits if we move that way as a board?
Yes, it can be really general, just approve.
Okay. If we are moved as a board to approve them, do I need to read them all out again for the formality of it?
Yes, I think it would be best just, we could just
Sure.
say the individual address.
Sure. Name and address will do.
Excuse me, Ms. Chairperson.
Yes, give me just a moment. I'm going to, I'll happily call on folks once I work through our other members, if that's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then my last question was, Chris, is the kind of the stipulation simply no complaints, or is it if any other conditions were put on these permits, like installation of an electric fence or something like that, they would also be separated for other as their own items, correct?
So if the board voted to approve at the locations for the permit, it would be, what the board would be doing is extending the term of the permit under the initial
Okay.
issuance.
Okay, so the conditions that we originally placed, okay, would hold. Excellent. Okay. Susan Murray, do you have questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay, great. I'll now open it up to others. I'm going to ask that you raise your hand first, and I'll call on you just so that way there's some order. And then when I do call on you, please say your name and address for the record if possible.
I will
If
tell
you-
you that I don't know how to raise hand.
Okay,
so
that's
I
okay.
am
We seem
muted.
to be a small enough group. Go ahead. Can you state your name and address, and then you go ahead and speak, please?
Yes, I can. My name is Terry Ham. I live at 30 Alden Ave in Dartmouth. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like the permit has already been issued. I'm concerned about the Louisa Souza permit. And the concern I have 2 concerns. One is, are the chickens for collecting eggs, or are they going to be slaughtered on the property? And the second concern is the 3 roosters that are there. My understanding is that roosters are not allowed because of the noise, the potential for them to be making noise very early in the morning. And I live about 2 houses away from this property. So that is if I'm too late, it sounds like I'm too late on this. And if so, so be it. But if there's an opportunity to comment on it, and if that would make a difference, that's why I'm here.
Chris, would you like to answer her, or do you want me to give it a try?
Whichever you prefer.
I'll tell you my understanding. So we originally, roosters are allowed if they go before us as the Board of Health. And usually when we approve roosters, if we do, we take a number of considerations in mind and based on the expertise of our health agents like Chris and formerly Sandy. So for example, while I don't recall this specific one, oftentimes when someone is requesting a rooster, we look at the amount of space that they have. We often require collars or some sort of requirement so that the roosters don't crow outside of daylight or the waking hours, especially in the summer because of when they wake up versus when humans usually wake up. So my understanding is we had approved this, but there's a time period in which we approved it. And then I have just been told, my understanding was there were no formal complaints. And so I believe the roosters have been there. But with that said, Chris, did I summarize that correctly? We haven't had any complaints yet. Is this something we need to consider again? And the roosters have been there, correct?
So, yeah, there's been no complaints that we're aware of. We do require them to, keep any noise
Misunderstood
faded so it doesn't generate
that information.
complaints. If someone does create noise, then that allows us
But they didn't.
to address it as a nuisance. We do not have a ban on the keeping of roosters.
Yeah.
Okay,
We never did. Many years ago, the board did somewhat unilaterally, by policy, not allow roosters. But we can't, that's ruling without due process. So that's why there can be this public perception that we don't allow roosters in Dartmouth, but it was by a policy and without due process, so it was not enforceable.
okay. And do you know about the chickens? Are they just for collecting eggs, or are they gonna be processed on the property?
Yeah, I do not know that with any degree of affirmation, but I would, based on meat birds, I would think it would be very unusual for this to be some rotating cycle of meat birds, just based on the volume.
Okay,
I will say though that, as some people, if they're really trying to get the most agricultural value out of chickens, that as hens mature, sometimes they do find a useful purpose in a other aspect of the food supply chain other than eggs.
okay,
But that's more incidental to the primary purpose is egg production. And that's what
okay,
we tend to see. We only have, I think, maybe 3 locations that I'm aware of in Dartmouth, and those are all larger scale agricultural operations for consumption of the birds.
okay, that's great to know. Could I ask one more question, Madam
Go ahead.
Chairperson? The goats have been there for a long time. I'm assuming it's the same thing. They won't be used for, there won't be any slaughtering of goats on that property.
Chris, can you speak on that?
So yeah, we don't have a we are permitting the condition, the keeping. If someone was to say, listen, I want to raise, I want to get a rotating herd of goats for consumption. We don't have a ban on that. If someone was to slaughter and
Mhm.
create a public health nuisance, be it the flies from the mishandling of the offal, odors, etc., that is a separate actionable item. We would not, so we could take multiple, options that
Okay.
we have available to us with our local regulation and also state statute.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much.
Chris, I want to ask just one more clarification question. So each year when animal permits come before us, if folks still want an animal permit, so for example, if we approve this and then a year from now, this person still wants their animals and their roosters, that would again cause your staff to look into complaints and such at that time, and it would come before us again. Is that correct?
That's a great question. So if the board instates these permits before us today as full-term permits, they will expire at the end of the year. So within a few months, actually maybe 6 to 8 weeks, renewal notices will be going out. As part of the renewal notices, we conduct annual inspections of the facilities to make sure that there aren't any public health concerns. Then upon their application, the permit would renew automatically unless a referral was made to the board. And a referral to the board would be because of concerns during the inspection process or complaints. So if everything is just the status quo, there's no issues, just for the purposes of efficiency, the regulations do allow that to be administratively approved without referral to the board. We do have, I would say, maybe about 100 animal permits. So it would, and that's why it would be a significant undertaking by the board to process 100 agenda items.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great, thank you. Susan Marie, do you have any other thoughts? A lot of people have talked.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak or ask questions on this? Okay. Take a stab at a motion. All right, so finding that in an effort to be more efficient, that although previously animal permits were taken up as items individually, that it will be better for us to condition all of the animal permits into one batch, and that as long as there have been no complaints during the probationary period, and that there's a separate process if complaints are received. I move to approve all of the following domestic animal permits for A, Luisa Souza at 11 Alden Avenue, B, Ruby Nato at 5 Cornell Circle, C, Kevin Gallego at 492 Reed Road, D, Heather Roy at 330 Chase Road, E, Anthony Bernardini at 197 Horseneck Road, and F, Jonata Ferreira at 105 Old Westport Road. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, and we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, the motion passes. Excellent. Okay, and then 3 old business, item B, which is continued proposed well regulations, discussion with board on proposal from prior board decision to revise. Chris, do you want to start us off on this?
Sure. So we have the draft well regulations that have been created by staff, reviewed by town council, and that initiative started with the direction from the board. I'm gonna guess maybe 3 years ago. And then the process with, with council, that was a period of time. So we had the drafting period, the council period, which was, the initial review, then editing, reconciliation. Then we brought it back to this board. So the original directive wasn't with any of the members that are currently on the board. Ultimately, in the middle of winter, so that would have been maybe January, February, I believe we had our final document back. Because this is a regulation that has an impact on agriculture, any regulation passed by a Board of Health that has an impact on agriculture, it requires a 60-day notice to the Ag Commission if an Ag Commission is present. If an Ag Commission is not present, then the 60-day notice does not trigger. So we then notified the Ag Commission, and because of the election and with with the onboarding of a new member, we did circle back with discussions on this following the 60-day period. So these regulations are, long overdue because our current regulations are really outdated. So what these regulations do is it really puts an emphasis on protecting of the well with potential pollution sources. It also tightens up on the yield of the well for adequate production and supply of potable water. It more adequately defines what wells are within the board's jurisdiction. And then most importantly, it itemizes how we assign the well as being potable. And that is where, we struggled internally when these regs were first being drafted after the board's direction, because of one aspect of concern with anthropogenic influence on our private drinking water, as well as public drinking water supplies. So we do have criteria for the evaluation of that water with metals. Those metals that are most commonly associated with release sites, lead, for example, amongst 7 others. Also, volatile organic compounds, like TCE. There's that TCE plume that is most familiar for long-term residents of this area, up on Collins Corner Road, Davis Road, and Westport, that result in the extension of a water line. as well as the TCE plume that was talked about many decades ago on Cape Cod with the Air Force Base. But what we struggled with initially when this reg came back under the board before the election was, do we include PFAS, those forever compounds, or not? At that time, because of the 60-day notification period, it was my advice to the board to include that, because if the subsequent board composition felt that they wanted that, then that would have required a re-notification to the Ag Commission. So my understanding of the discussions of this board with this draft regulation is that there's been a lot of focus and concern about the implications of PFAS. A lot of the concerns that we struggled with here internally. We know that PFAS, again, forever compounds. I'm not trying to omit any of the other compounds when I say PFAS. So, the concern is that these compounds are ubiquitous to our day-to-day modern lifestyle. Dental floss, some food packaging, modern clothing. We are introducing it to ourselves daily. Some of it is intentional by the brands that we select. Some of it's unintentional by the water that we drink. And something that is so ubiquitous that we're regulating on the back end without regulating it on the front end can be a problem. What I mean by that is that, here at the local level, we don't have the ability to regulate something on the front end like PFAS. That really needs to be something that's addressed on the front end. So when you regulate it on the back end, it's kind of like an incomplete process. However, there seems to be growing focus on it publicly, not as aggressively as we've seen with other things, but there does seem to be a growing focus on it. Do I think that one day we could have a homeowner come in that decides to have their well tested for it and point the finger and say, why didn't you require my builder to test for this? That's the hard part where we struggled when we were drafting these regs. So, we don't have to come to a consensus now to advance these regulations to a public hearing. That can be deliberated by the board at the close of the hearing. But, I just want to caution the board that our regulations as they currently sit are really inadequate in many aspects of why private wells need to be regulated, and that, time slips away too quickly between now and the next election. I know it's only August, but it creeps up on us really quick. So just wanted to just mention all that to this board, to consider whether or not to advance these to hearing or to consider further discussions on that. At the last meeting in which this was discussed, which was, I believe, in May, there was a request for us to look and see if other communities have created local regulations with respects to private wells and these forever compounds. I did communicate to the board members individually. We did find a number of communities that are requiring that. We did not do a full audit of the 351 communities, but we did find a number of communities that are doing it. And that becomes a tough one. Do you want to be the last? Do you want to be the first? I think my advice to the board on that is, it's nice to know that others are doing it, but we should be doing it for what we know, and not because 100 other communities haven't or 250 haven't. When maybe that's a tough one. If we know that there are health implications from these compounds, then that should be how we weigh whether or not we should regulate it. So for me, the difficulty in this professionally is regulating this on the back end while we continue to introduce this stuff into the environment on the front end without any legislative interest to at least try to, govern down the flow on this in our in the environment. And that's all.
Thank you. I agree with you on because I work in wastewater, so we only get the back end as well. So it is tough. You can't. It seems silly in many ways to try and regulate the back end and not the front end. So I understand the struggle. I've had a similar struggle, but I do want to keep the overall goal in mind, which, if I'm understanding correctly, is the regulations that have been worked on and drafted and sent to council and sent to the Ag Commission, over years. I think they do precede me, and this is my last term on the board for this election, or last year rather. We need to. What is an ideal timeline, Chris? Like talk me through. If for example we took action on this today, we would then have a public hearing, because we're trying to get this done before the next election cycle, right? Does that question make sense, what I'm asking?
Well, I guess, that's kind of what I'm posing to the board, is that ideally, if there's an interest to modernize the board's private water supply regulations,
Yeah.
then if the hangup is the PFAS component of the forever compound component on it, there is nothing that would prevent the board from modifying at the close of the hearing to reduce it if the majority of the board, to eliminate that section if the board so voted in the positive, the majority. If the board decided to modify to the point where it was adding language, then that would have to go back to council, and then it would have to go back to Ag Commission.
Got it.
If the board said, "Hey, listen, we're going to approve it, but we're going to just pull that section out," then that's something that can, this draft could go to a hearing, and then at the conclusion of the public hearing, the board could deliberate and remove, and that wouldn't interfere with, the timing within this board's term.
Got it. Okay. What is, as far as language of a motion, it would be moving to have the well regulations go to public hearing. Would that be the wording? Either that, or we would decide to table it. Is that?
So yeah, we could, there could be a motion to table this for further deliberations. There could be a motion to, advance the public hearing.
Okay. Advance public hearing. Okay. One other thing I noted, and then I'll kind of give final conclusions, and then of course bring you in, Susan Marie. So I did call Zach Seabury. He's the Mashpee Health Director. I've kind of known him because I do my work on Cape Cod, and so I was kind of curious. I didn't pick his brain very much, but Mashpee is one of the towns that has the regulations in place, and he said he hasn't encountered complaints from homeowners on this. From what I read, it was honestly a quick skim, but I looked at the Mashpee regs, and similarly, it's just new wells, new private wells. It's not making everybody go back. Who owns a well? Although I think in their regulations they even say it's recommended that you test your private well. So I mean, I thought that was reassuring. I know Mashpee is a different town; they're in a different situation. They do have the plume from the base, but I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I absolutely see the logic, and I think we kind of need to move forward at this point. I am in favor of going to public hearing with it. That will give us certainly a chance to have Richard Romero with us, hopefully, and to continue moving with it, because I mean, I've been on projects before where it sits, and a lot of hard work has gone into this, and I agree. We can still get rid of the PFAS part at the end of the public hearing, if that's what we want. So that's where I stand. I'd like to move it forward at this point. And Susan Marie, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, if we are able to hear from the public about, because I would be, as we discussed before, I believe that PFAS is harmful and that we should know if it's our drinking water, but there are these consequences that we don't know about. So if we can even hear from town members how they feel about it, then I think that's important. Especially if we hear that it is going to be a problem and we can discuss it further and potentially remove it after or during this period. Am I understanding that right? That that's still a possibility, then I'm okay moving it forward.
I think the way it goes is after, if we're in agreement, we move it forward to public hearing. And then anyone from the public can come and comment on it. And then probably we as members deliberate on, at that same meeting. If we then move forward with our regulations, or if, for example, we wanted to strike it, if we do want to add stuff, it's a little trickier. It's not impossible. There's drawbacks to that. But at least I think the PFAS part is what we are kind of having the hardest part about. So Chris, is that correct? Is we definitely at the end of our public hearing, when we move to that direction, we talk as a board publicly, and that's kind of when we make our decision. If we say yes, promulgate the regulation.
That is correct. But, what I want to advise is that, if you pass them and it's in there and then you have, second thoughts, then what's going to happen is we would have to, go back through the board would have to say, all right, we're going to, put this on the agenda and we're going to, revise our regulations. So we'd go back through the approval process. But only if it passed with it in there, and then you said we want to pull it out. And the only thing I would, caution on that approach would be is, if you're going to rescind regulations that are standing, then there should be some substantial findings as to why. So, it's, and we'll be further down the line. So, the time to deliberate it is going to be at a hearing.
Mhm.
Because it's a higher threshold once the regs, are passed, in my eyes, to rescind it or rescind a component, than to not adopt a particular section of a draft set of regulations.
Got it. Yeah, so we want to be pretty sure on what we decide at the end of that public hearing.
Yes.
So logistics, let me talk logistics really quick with you, Chris. So because I believe I'm in agreement with Susan Murray, that we're going to move this forward. We'll obviously do the formal motion. Will we need to then figure out, your recommendation is that it's in person? Do we need to talk about that right now? Is that something we should keep in mind, or so that way we have a timeline?
Yeah, so I would recommend that we meet in person for the adoption or the public hearing for the adoption of new regulations. There has been some discussions by the select board about concern with access for important meetings. I do, not that our meetings aren't important, but when we're adopting a regulation, I believe it would be best if we met in person.
And right now we only have our August meeting scheduled, right? So would it be more realistic? And we're missing Richard Romero. So if we move forward with having this go to public hearing, would it make sense that at our August meeting we then set the date for the public hearing to be in September? Does that logically make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense, because then it
Okay.
allows us to, lets the public know, and then, September. And, with August 27th, one of the complaints I could see from the public is that's, on the heels of Labor Day
Uh-huh.
and, back to school. And so, yeah, having it in September, we kind of get by all that clutter.
Yeah.
And, in
And then
public schedule.
great, yeah, and we'll have Richard Romero too, because I think at least for me, it helps to have a little bit of extra notice to know that we want to be in person logistically. Okay. Any last thoughts before I make a motion? Okay. So finding that the Board of Health members, you know, are interested in moving the drafted well regulations and want to hear more the public comments on it before making any decisions on the final decisions on any more yeah, you know, internally debated items. I move to have the well regulations go forward for public hearing. Can I get a second?
I second.
Right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay. Excellent. All right, and then section 4, any item not known 48 hours in advance. This item is informational only and not for deliberations by the public body. Do you have anything on this, Chris?
I do not. There is one, well, actually, you know what? There is.
Okay.
So, we have been notified by the city of New Bedford. And this could be very well a moving target. That's why I was a little indecisive, because I could also send this off by email when I learn more on this. But, the city of New Bedford is advised of the site assignment public hearing, at the New Bedford Board of Health for the, South Coast Renewables, project. That's that large solid waste processing facility that's been all over the news. I do understand that there might be some litigation. I say might because it's in the newspaper. I haven't confirmed that in any court related documents. So, you know, it's near the industrial park, so it is somewhat near. So I'll be looking into this a little bit. It's not near our residential district. The litigation that is alleged to have been filed on this or to be filed is stemming from a neighborhood outside of our jurisdiction that's residential, that's near this proposed solid waste handling facility. So that's all.
Thank you. Chris, is it appropriate for me to be asked to be reminded when our August Board of Health meeting is during this section?
August 27th.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. Okay, I don't think I see anything else. So it is 5:28 on Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. I'm going to move to adjourn the Dartmouth Board of Health meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. All right, goodbye, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great night.